So here we go. This is first of hopefully a lot of little tutorials I'm going to have up here on the YouTube page. Just going to start out really basic here for everybody who's not too familiar with ZBrush. I've opened it up, went ahead and actually, when you want to pick out your first tool, I'm starting out with a sphere. So what you're going to want to do is just come up here to Tool, click on Sphere 3D. To be able to actually sculpt on this, going to want to come up here and hit Make Polymesh 3D. That makes it so it's actually going to be, so you can sculpt on it like a big old piece of clay. You'll probably want to come over to Transform, come down to Activate Symmetry, and that's one of the neater things about ZBrush is that you can work on both sides at once. I usually start out, I'll come up here to Move, and I'm going to, you want to hold in your Alt key, and you can click on that. That's going to center it, and it's centering it symmetrically. I usually like to just start with the sphere and then sort of draw it out so it's a little bit lengthened, and you can do that with any of these. They'll sort of push and pull. I usually will just real quick do that. Go back over to Draw. And then what you can do, you can hold in the Shift key. Whenever you hold in the Shift key and then just sort of drag over here off on the canvas, it'll lock it into place. So right now I've got locked in, you can't, it's hard to tell in this shape. This is forward, this is the side. So I'm going to turn on my Move brush, and I'm just going to sort of pull it out so I get a good profile. Profile is really, really important when you're doing a face, so that you want to make sure your profile is deep enough so that you don't end up with a real flat face. I'm just sort of pulling and pushing stuff till I get about the right shape. You want to turn it a lot as you're doing this so you can sort of see where you are. And if you don't turn it around a lot, you'll end up with some really weird shapes going on. Now I'm not going for super realistic here. Definitely not doing like a likeness. I enjoy doing sort of stylized stuff most of the time. And then I'm just gonna, you can just smooth this, hold in the Shift key, and you'll see you've switched to your smooth brush. Just gonna smooth this out a little bit where I've pushed and pulled it. There's not a lot that I don't do a heck of a lot with the Move brush, because I'll want to switch over and actually be sculpting on things. So I'll just get a general shape down, and then we're going to come over here to Geometry and come down here to the Dynamesh button. And what that's going to do, see right here is our mesh right now. There's not a heck of a lot you can do. Turn the intensity up. If you do nothing, if you just move it on there, you're going to get, it's going to add. Come up here and undo. If you hold in your Alt key at the same time, it'll take away some of the material. So that's what we want to do here. But you see it's doing a real bad job of it because we don't have a lot of geometry there. So undo. And you can also hit Control Z to undo. So we're going to come over here to Dynamesh, and at this point I keep it pretty low. It'll automatically be at 128. I always come over here, turn off blur. Also go ahead and turn on groups, because later on I'm going to be adding on ears and eyes, and I want to keep those separate until I'm ready to merge things in. I turn that on just to make sure I don't forget later. So we're going to hit Dynamesh, and what that did is it gave us more geometry to work from. See, went from that to that. So I generally like to just start off with, I mean, if I was going to be doing a likeness, I might sort of draw it out a little bit. Like come over here to the standard brush. And I mean, you can do this anyway, if you like. Turn the Z add off so that you're not actually going to be adding any material to it. Turn RGB on. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and real quick hit M RGB, because that's going to be material and coloring. And then come up here to color and fill object. And that now filled this with the color, so it won't change as I change colors around. Turn off the alpha, just go to dots. And then under standard, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. Make a darker color. And then you can just sort of draw on like where you want features to be, that sort of thing. I wasn't going to do it this time. I just sort of want to wing it and play around, come up with a stylized looking character here. So what I'm actually going to do is use clay buildup, which is one of the basic brushes, comes with ZBrush, and it's sort of a workhorse of a brush. So I'm not worrying about proportions or anything at this point. So what I generally, first thing I almost always do is start with the eyes, or the eye sockets. And I'll dig that out. And I'm just holding in Alt. It's important. Keep looking at the side as you're doing this. Keep turning the thing all the time. Yeah, I usually like to, right off the bat, get that shape in there. You immediately know that's going to be a face. I'm just, almost like if you had a scraper tool, I'm just really lightly scraping off material. And you'll notice that I talk about this like it's real clay, because that's sort of what I started out doing. It's hard not to see it like that. And always turn every direction you can. See, that might be a little bit squared off more than I want it to be. And hit Shift whenever you want to just get it lined up on an axis. Clay buildup again. And then I usually, at this point, you know, I've got the cheekbone in there a little bit. What I usually do at this point, next thing is start here and just get that line. And sometime, at some point, I mean, it doesn't have to be right now, I'll go in and just sort of work in where the eye's going to be. And smoothing again, hold in Shift and just sort of go over it a little bit. Just using the move brush to move things around a little bit. Then back to clay buildup. I will use clay buildup a lot. Just sort of scraping. I've got another clay buildup that I did myself, just real basic off of that, where it just doesn't do as much damage to the surface. It doesn't take away as much or add as much. And I really use that a lot less since I got a new Wacom tablet that's more sensitive. The old clay buildup seems to work just fine most of the time. Just getting that in there. Then you can, at any time, you can hold in Control and then drag off of here, and it'll dynamesh for you. So holding in Control, drag off your mesh, and it dynameshed and clean things up a little bit. It redoes the topology so it's more even. And then at this point, I'll usually go ahead and just give myself an idea of where the nose is going to be. And it's a mess, and that's okay. And just hold in Shift, smooth a little bit. You can dynamesh again, just smoothing. Yeah, you can do a heck of a lot with just clay buildup for very unmove, a little bit of move, but mostly clay buildup. Yeah, I'm just sitting here tweaking a little bit. And always, like when you're doing the cheekbones, I like to, I'm looking at about 3/4 view, and I'm not, even though I'm moving stuff over here, like on this side, I'm paying attention to where things are over here, like in that right there, to sort of go, that's a little off. I want that a little more out. And so you can see, you need to sort of be looking at both sides at the same time. Just using the move brush to pull his head out a little bit. I'm not worrying too much about the shape of his cranium there. Just want to get a little bit. Worrying more about the face right now. And he's got sort of a squared off forehead, which isn't bad. I mean, nothing's really bad. It's just if it's what you want it to look like or not. Just dynameshing real quick and smoothing a little bit. Okay, so back to clay buildup. I generally like doing this. Just gives me an idea of where everything is. I'll make a little line there and smooth it out a little bit. Just figure out where the bottom of his nose is, smoothing it out a little bit. Okay, this is just real rough, figuring out about where his lips are going to be. The nice thing about ZBrush too is it's so easy to just fix things in. Like just that sort of thing right there would be so much effort in clay. In ZBrush, it's just like nothing. Okay, after I've got his mouth sort of where I want it, smoothing out a little bit, Dynamesh. I like going back and, you know, this is about where his bottom lip's going to be. I then like to do this little W shape. It's like one of the most fun parts of a face to sculpt. And then get that a little bit more defined. And then I like to go ahead and cut the mouth in with something. I've been using these mock-cut brushes. I got them. They're by, you can see right there, it's by Michelangelo Hernandez. I bought these a long time ago, or he gave them away or something. They're really nice. They're made for doing like mech stuff, like you can see on the design on it. But it's such a nice brush for just this sort of thing. I'm going to turn the RGB off. I use this all the time. Turn up the intensity a little bit. For just roughing in like a mouth or areas like this. Smooth it out. I'm also gonna, here I'm gonna go ahead and do this. You saw how wonky that was coming out. See where it's really not got enough geometry to work with. So, see, it's going to be a mess no matter what. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and up the resolution. Not a heck of a lot. I like to do it gradually as I'm adding detail. And then Dynamesh, and I've now got a lot more to work with. Smooth that out. Then I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, see how much better that is. And then if you hold in Shift, I like to do, and this is more to just give myself an idea of where the line is. Or you can use, you can use pinch brush. I also like these Xeon cutter brushes. I can't remember who made these. They're another one that I just got offline. And same thing, just using it to make that sort of raised edge on the lips. Yeah, and you see this is why it's good to turn sideways. That's That's a mess. But that's okay because it's ZBrush and you can just sit here and push and pull till you get things the way you want them to be. So this might need to come out a tiny bit. And then back to clay buildup, which is just such a good brush. See, right there was a mess. It dipped in a little bit too much. It just looked odd for the shape of this guy's face. And just figure out about where that is. And then another one of my, go ahead and clean this up a little bit. Now that we have a little bit more geometry. Yeah, one of my other weirdly favorite parts of the face is just this little area right here. Just this little bit of muscle and flesh there, the corner of the mouth. Here, I'm going to go ahead and go to a damn standard brush. Just to get that in there. See that right there, to me it just adds a lot of character, that little bit. Oops. Let's see if I can get the right brush. And this is usually, you got a little bit of a curve there. Yeah, and I always make a point to zoom out a little bit every now and then. I mean, it really matters if you've got a certain look you're going for, which I really don't on this guy. At least not yet. All this a bit. And about here, I like to just come back here and make sure at some point that I'm getting that edge on the jawline so it's not just square. Smooth a little bit so that I've got this here defined. Yeah, make it a little bit more stylized there. About this point, I like to make sure I know where that is. Okay, at this point, I'd like to get this bit in. Dynamesh. Smooth it out a little bit. Just make sure it's fairly well defined. Just a bit more bulbous of a nose. And then I'm going to use that mock-up brush again. Dynamesh. Yeah, it's, at this point, I rarely use anything much beyond the clay buildup and the move. Oops. And shift, just line it up on the axis. Yeah, and most head, here I'm going to go ahead and up the resolution a tiny bit more just to, there we go. Yeah, most heads, it's not much different than just this. And then I've got this little cloth wrinkle brush I made a while back. I think it started out as clay buildup, but it just gives me a rounded edge instead of a sharp edge. Use that a little bit. Just to get that little edge right there on the edge of the lip. And this is why it's a good idea to turn things a lot. Make sure you don't end up with just odd angles on things. See, that feels a little bit too pronounced for what I was picturing with this guy. And there's a lot of just tweaking of stuff that goes on. You want to constantly be turning the guy around. Yeah, with this one where I'm just sort of making them up as I go, it's a lot more just making sure you sort of not got anything that stands out as off, rather than having to worry about him actually looking like something. want to define the side of his nose a little bit more. And then before I start getting into the eyes, I'd like to make sure this is about the first part that I do on any eyes, to make sure I got that fleshy bit there. Go ahead and tiny mesh. And then doesn't matter that much which brush you use, but I'm going to go ahead and use the little, just softer cloth edge brush that I've got. Just to build up bottom lid tiny mesh. Little thing there. Okay, and then I like at this point, you want to go ahead and turn to the side. Just use your move brush and make sure this has got a good angle there, so this isn't like further out than the top. Make sure you turn it around constantly. And I know this is a weird way to do eyes, but I will sit here and just sort of try to eyeball it till it's somewhere near round and still leave it without an eye in it for a little bit. Just defining this a little bit more. I'm just really taking off a tiny bit of material there. Yeah, I'm getting in a little bit. Don't necessarily need to get into these little structures yet. And see, that's a weird shape on a nose right there. I mean, it's all right. Just feels a little off. There. I'm just pushing that in a little bit so you can see the structure a little bit more. And there are just little things I'll sit here and 1,000 times over just go, oh, that's slightly off. Okay, so at okay, so that's not a bad start on him. Next, I'll usually come over to the insert primitives here, and come across to just insert sphere. And this is what we're going to use to make his eyes. Hold on. Yeah, I've got it set to really dark from when I was doing it on the drawing with the standard. So I'm going to set it a little bit. Here we go. And I generally just wing it on the size and everything. And this is the gizmo for moving it. And what it did when I used the insert brush, it automatically masked the main head. It masked everything that I wasn't inserting. So I'm going to want to center my gizmo on that. So you hold in Alt, and then that will realign it, and then this one will center it on the unmasked piece. And then you can use these right here to just move it around. These will move it exactly up and down along the axis, whichever one. But right now I'm just gonna wing it. And that's pretty close. Okay. And then you can go back. What I usually like to do, go ahead and if you hold in Shift and Control and then click on whichever part of the mesh, and that'll single that out, and then you can hit hold in Control and click off the mesh, and it just masks those. Now, again, hold in Shift and Control, click off, and it brings back that. Now, the eyes are masked, so I can't affect those. So go over to Move, and I can sort of mess with the shape of his eyes a little bit. Here, I'm going to add a little bit. And smooth it out a little bit. Sometimes you'll have this weird thing that happens where it'll, if it's like two meshes like this one will affect, you'll have a hard time sculpting on this one because of that one being there, and sometimes you'll have to just do that and work, just hide the one so that you can mess with the area without it being affected by the other mesh. Oops. There we go. Oops. Okay. And just because it's bothering me a little bit, soften that jaw a little bit. Also gonna pull it down a little bit. Yeah, and one of the neat things about ZBrush, you can do anything. I mean, I could save it at this point and then see what it'll look like if we just made his entire head wider. Oh, and if we want it to actually affect everything here. See, this button right here will make it affect all subtools that are shown. I mean, it's all one subtool as it is, so it'll affect both of them. But yeah, this is just one of the neat things about ZBrush. You can sit here and do whatever and see what you come up with. And then you can just go backwards. Okay, so at this point, hold on, this is bothering me a little bit because I keep seeing it in the profile. Okay. Next thing I usually do at this point is put the ears on. And ears they're also a really fun thing to be doing. Okay, so what I usually do for ears, come over here back to the insert mesh. And same thing, insert sphere, but instead of leaving it at the Z intensity, that'll give you an actual sphere at 100. If you lower this, the lower you get, the flatter the part will be. And let me show you. Hold on. I'm going to just do this. This is how you choose a color if you want. Just come here, click on that, and then pick whatever color you want. And I just pick that so it'll match. Oops. Also, turn on RGB. There we go. See, now instead of a sphere, we're getting this sort of disc where it's giving me 37 instead of 100%, I guess, from there to there, where it would have been a sphere. And then you can come up here to move again. And then I'm just centering it on it. And then you can use these to sort of move it and angle it. And I'm holding in, if you hold in Alt, you can sort of turn it the way you need. There we go. I'm just getting it somewhere near it. Okay. And then what I usually do at this point is come down to move. And your ear's generally shaped like sort of a kidney bean or a kidney. So I'll just get somewhere near the right shape. And from the side, it's a little bit more like that. I'm just using the move brush here, pushing it around a little bit. Okay. So at this point, I will, it's not going to have enough geometry to really do anything with at this point. So I'm clicking on Control and dragging to unmask. And then I'm going to click on Control and drag again. And you'll see, aha, there we go. At some point I didn't. There we go. Need to make sure I've got groups on and blur off. And then now when I drag and Dynamesh, you see it kept them separate. And I definitely want that. Definitely want that for the eyeballs. And I want it for the ear right now until I go back and merge it in with the head. So ears are fun to sculpt. And if you just sort of follow a little pattern, they're not too hard. I'll start off making that shape, and then I will every time start off right there. And then mark in that. And then I'll either, a lot of the time I'll use this because it's just a softer curve that it's given me. That and that. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the head off so I can do this. Oops. And just clearing out some of the material there. So it's got like a little, there's a Y shape there. See, it loops around there. You want to be turning to the side while you're doing this to make sure you're not getting weird shapes any other direction. See, you can, this is a little early, but you can put a little line in there if you want. And back to clay buildup. And then from the side, it's always a good idea to make sure you got, there are a bunch of different angles here. You got this coming out here. And every ear is different, so you don't have to worry about getting it exactly right. So what makes things interesting is everything being a little bit different. And then I usually will get it about to there. And then, now this is sort of important when you're working on things that are thinner, where the mesh, the sides of the mesh may come together. You want to turn on back face mask, which I've got it in this little menu. I can't even remember where it was to begin with. I think it may have been under brush. Let me make sure. Maybe under auto masking. Yeah, it's under auto masking under brush. And what'll happen, like, let me leave that off for a second. And, oh, it's not, hold on. Let me make this a little bit thinner first. See what it did there? Where it totally screwed things up, where it pulled this side of the mesh through because it was so thin. That's why you want to have backface mask on, because it's masking the side that you're not working on. It's masking here to keep this side from pulling through. But yeah, then I'll go to the back side of the ear like this, and just getting the shape down. And then I'm just going to smooth out all this. And go ahead and bring that back. And I'm going to, yeah, it's not bad looking. And you can, like I said, you can always just move stuff around forever in ZBrush. Pull that out a little bit more, pull those out. You can change the size and everything, really. I'm going to move it down a little bit. And let's say, like right now, these are all part of the same subtool, or the same mesh, the same piece. So what I want to do is only I only want to mask the ear. So what I did there, I held down Control and clicked on it. And that works when you've got the gizmo turned on. Then I'm going to center it. I just want to move it down a tiny bit. And I can turn on that axis a little bit. Move it around. Yeah, and the little yellow square, that's how you scale up and down. Hold on. Undo. I want to move a little bit forward. Okay. And I'm not liking that little bump very much. Here, like that a little bit better. Okay, well, it's probably a good stopping spot on this really basic, really early tutorial. Yeah, that's how I sculpt a head, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of these old tutorials on here. If anybody's got any questions, I guess, put them up there and let me see, and I'll see what I can answer or not answer. And yeah, maybe next time around we'll take this guy and go ahead and put some poly paint on him and color him up to give him a little more personality and whatnot. Yeah, that's about it for now. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.